Welcome to Man's Search for Meaning. The conversations you're about to hear is with Emmanuel Pascari. Emmanuel is a two-time Strongman world champion, a entrepreneur, and a coach. He is the perfect example of someone whose looks is deceiving, because a lot like me, people perceive me a lot of times as buff and stupid. Emmanuel is exactly the opposite of that. He's a wise person and a humble human being. Being so humble, in my opinion, is what makes him such a great champion. And at the same time, his hunger for competing and becoming excellent is something that inspires me and drives me as well. I had an amazing conversation with Emmanuel about religion, about family, about relationships, of course, about his strongman career, about injuries and how you can perceive yourself as a person who's recovering from injuries and how you can deal with the psychological and physical pain of injuries. And I learned a lot from that conversation. It was great. Let's get into it. What are some main lessons that your faith as a Christian has taught you?
I think one big one is to be always humble. And that's what I'm trying to be always. Like people who know me, or let's say people who don't know me, they might at the first glance be like, oh, this person looks a bit ignorant, or this person looks a bit arrogant or stuff like that, but that's really, really far off who I am and how I want to be, you know. So for me, being humble is like really basically one of the most important things, because I don't want to be overly proud, and I don't want to be like this egocentric and narcissistic person, basically. So for me, it's always be as humble as possible, and also try to be as kind as possible, you know, because for me, for myself, it was always like really important. And this is also one like huge teaching of the Christian belief or the Christian faith, is that you want to serve the next person to you, or you basically like everyone, you know, love your neighbor as thyself. And also there's this famous saying, like, how you want to be treated, treat other people. And that's for me something what I really, really took really personal for myself. And it's done really a lot of good things in my life. Of course, sometimes there were also situations where people aren't that kind, you know, and they're like using this. But being humble and being kind are two of the biggest teachings and lessons what I'm trying to also teach to other people, or to show to other people, you know. So I want that if I'm interacting with someone, with you or with someone else, to see, hey, this is really a kind person, this is a humble person, he's not overly arrogant, he's not trying to use me in any way, he really wholeheartedly wants the best for me, you know. And so I really want to be like such a person, basically, you know.
Yeah, and I have to say it shows. It shows, like from my interaction with you. For those of you who don't know, Emmanuel used to coach me for a little bit. It was a short time, and I was a very problematic client, because he caught me at a very, very problematic time of my life in terms of sports, which I'm still in, by the way. But not to make this about me. I mean, I'll make this about me a little bit later. But right now, like I want to say that it really shows. I just saw this interesting video by Alexander Bromley, where he talks about the psychology of champion athletes, and he makes this kind of distinction between the kind of like the toxic champions, which are, you know, the Bill Kazmaiers, the Michael Jordans, the Tiger Woodses, and the benevolent champions, which, you know, the people like, I don't know, the Brian Shaws or stuff like that. And I can definitely see that with you as a world champion and as a high level athlete. Like this level of humility, I think, is what makes someone like, I don't know, like I appreciate a person who's a high achiever, and when you meet them, you just see a person. I really do. I really do. I'm actually curious. You said before that some people have tried to take advantage of your kindness or of your humility or whatever. How do you balance that? Like, what do you say to yourself? Because I know that a lot of guys are like that. They're like, why would I be nice if women are treating me poorly, if my boss is treating me poorly, if, I don't know, my environment is horrible, why shouldn't I be horrible back? So how do you make sense of that? What do you tell yourself that keeps you kind, even though some people are just fucking dicks?
So that's, I think you have to view this from a different perspective, basically, or for different points of views, basically, because you can always decide how you are going to react to something, So if someone is coming and is like, I don't know, let's say this person is insulting you, it's, you can decide how you react. If you are not saying anything, if you are taking it how it is, or if you are just turning away, or if you are insulting this person back, And on the other hand is also, you don't have, even if you're kind, or even if you're like a nice person or whatever, you don't have to let people get as close as possible to you, like some relatives or like your wife or partner or close friends or whatever, You can still treat people with dignity and respect, You can still be kind to people, although you don't know them. And like I said, you are deciding how you are reacting to certain situations. So,
but
the interesting thing also,
like internally, this is what I'm curious about, because you can definitely like turn the other cheek when someone is like being an asshole to you and you don't want to participate in it. But then when you go home and you look in the mirror, like, how do you keep justifying being nice to them?
This is the point where I wanted to go now. The next interesting is, let's take these two situations. So if you are going to react in a bad way, it depends what kind of person you are, but usually you will always have something in your mind bothering you a little bit for quite some time, and maybe even later, even a few days later, a few weeks later, sometimes even months later, you are somewhere and maybe something is happening and you are remembered of this situation, how you reacted in a bad way with this certain person. But if you are deciding to be humble and to be kind and to be good, and to not answer with the same aggression or offense or whatever, but you are deciding to be a good person instead, you will feel some kind of peace, maybe for a bit after this situation happened, you will be like, I should have been like that, I should have been like that, I should have been like that. But after that, you will feel some kind of peace and some kind of warmth, and you will be released, basically. It's like, on one hand, if you are reacting in a bad way, you are like putting a stone in your imaginary bag, and you are just putting your burdens on your back, basically. But on the other hand, if you are reacting in a good way, you are releasing stuff from yourself, and you are basically cleaning yourself. So I would view it like that,
It's interesting. Like, do you get? I mean, you said previously that people kind of sometimes perceive you as like a meathead. I get perceived as a meathead a lot too. You see someone who's like buff, who has like a beard, and you already think, oh, that guy, he's a dick, he's an idiot. When you see someone who's treating you like that, how do you respond with kindness?
Usually I'm not trying to let it get to me in an emotional way. I'm always trying to stay like, in German we are saying sachlich, So like emotionless on a formal level, basically. So that's why I'm trying to, and sometimes I'm like, it depends on what kind of a mood I am, but sometimes I'm just starting to discuss with this person and see, okay, well, what are you thinking exactly? Why are you thinking like that? And I'm trying after to just get into some kind of conversation, and maybe perhaps in this conversation to show this person, hey, I'm not just a meathead or only a meathead.
I'm also a meathead, but like I'm also another
Yeah.
thing, except for being a
Yeah.
meathead. Right. What do you think, back to the Christian thing, what do you think people who don't believe in God, what do you think they're missing out?
I think I tried many things too, so I grew up, many are saying, you're just Christian because you grew up like that and you were forced into this religion, or you don't know anything else. But I also wasn't for quite some time in the church. I didn't want to believe. I just wanted to live my life how I wanted, to go other paths and stuff. And what I found is that when you find Christ, you are finding basically the very thing you are looking for, but you are never finding. That's hard to explain, but it's like we as humans, we are always looking for something, and like your podcast has also this nice name, Man's Search for Meaning, and it's interesting because also I forgot how it's in English, the name of one of the books. It's after the Proverbs. There's
I don't know the Christian books in the English names.
me neither, but it's how it's in English. Anyway, after the Proverbs, there's another book from Solomon, from King Solomon, and there he writes one of the verses in chapter 3 is like, God put the search for eternity in man's hearts, basically, or something like that, So from the very beginning, and it's something normal. Like everyone is asking this question: is there more to this life? Is there a meaning to this life? Is there something after life? And for me, this always was really interesting to see that. Okay, God really from the beginning put something in us to look for something bigger than ourselves, And when you find Christ, you are finding basically the answer for this question, and you are finding the thing which is filling your void, basically, because some people are running to drugs, some people are running maybe to sports or career, or some other things. They're always trying to fill a certain void in their lives, or they're trying to find meaning, but you're never going to find meaning if you're not going to the very thing which created this, or which put this thought in you, basically,
Yeah, I'll just share with you that, like, for me, since I was like 14 and up until I was something like 26 or something, I was a hardcore atheist, like really hardcore atheist. Like I grew up Jewish, and my dad was always trying to get me to do religious stuff. But always, because you're 14 and you're rebellious and your dad is telling you to do it because I said so, then you just don't want to do it just because your dad said so. And I kind of grew up with this anti for religion. And I kind of thought, yeah, this is like what people really think, that there is a man sitting in the sky and telling you what to do. And I kind of realized that after like a long time that, I mean, I've delved a lot into like Christian philosophy because I'm very interested. One of my favorite writers is John Milton, and the stuff that is written in Paradise Lost is just so deep. One of the things that he says is that hell and heaven is not a physical place but a state of mind, which is something that I can relate a lot to. And one thing I can definitely say on all of my years of being an atheist, that it was hell. Because it is a state of mind that is just, it's not a place that is good. It is a place where you feel envy, you feel deceitful, you feel wrath, you feel anger, you feel jealous, you feel greedy. Yep. And when you say like connect to a higher place, to me it seems like when I operate on this higher frequency, and I'm not a Christian, but I definitely believe in God. It seems like all of these earthly desires, you know, they're not subdued because you're still human, but they're not as prominent in your life. It seems that there's other things that replace them. It's like you don't live for the dopamine, you don't live for the material, you live for something bigger, and then you operate out of a higher frequency.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is exactly something what I also like experienced, you know, and it's interesting because like if you're accepting God as your creator, you know, and you are giving basically yourself into his hands, what you're also doing is you are accepting to give your life for someone else, you know. So you are accepting that God is now leading your way, and you are accepting that you are now trying to serve other people. So this means you are it or how should I say, in this world now, like also with the fleshly desires, with lust and with envy and basically the seven deadly sins and stuff, you know, they're all basically egocentric, you know, so you want to feel your needs, you know, and that's also like really prominent in our modern days, you know. Everyone is like really egocentric, everyone is like really narcissistic. If we're going like and looking now in America with their election, they're talking about abortion a lot, for example, and it's your body, your choice. It's always about the person's needs and the person's wants, basically, you know. But if you live a life for God, if you live a life for someone else, you are self-sacrificing yourself, basically, you know. That's why also Christ came and said, yeah, go and pick up your cross. Because it's hard to self-sacrifice yourself for someone else. For God, you know.
The hardest.
Because you know, okay, you will never meet the expectations and the basically the laws which God. So that's why we have the grace of Christ, and that's why Christ died for us. But also, if you want to serve other people, it's really hard sometimes. Like we had this discussion, how you are kind to someone who's not kind to you. You know, it's like sometimes really, really hard. You know, but therefore I would say the bigger is the reward if you are serving someone else, and if you can deny your needs for a bigger purpose. So for a bigger purpose, you know, you will feel you will feel it on that day, and you will have this feeling or also carry along with you every day, basically, you know, because it will just be calm. You know, there will not be something raging in yourself, inside you. There will not be mental chaos, basically. You know, there will be peace, there will be calmness, and just really a really deep state, basically. You know.
I see what you mean. I think though, you know, with Christianity, I often think that a lot of the things are being presented as right and wrong, or good and evil, or, you know, God is benevolent, God is good, Satan is evil, Satan is whatnot. And I tend to think, you know, like I'm thinking about when it comes to finding meaning or operating in that higher frequency, delegating, like sacrificing yourself to a higher good. I totally believe in that. I totally think it's right. And I also think that there is a place to serve that, let's say, that ego. It's like, I tend to think it's like, let's say if I ask, when I kind of thought of myself, like, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I a coach? Why do I help why do I want to help people at all? Why don't I just like find, a job in sales, make shitloads of money, do that, live my life? At the beginning, I had this explanation, this immature explanation of, I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing it for others. That was my immature explanation. I'm doing this for others, which is, I want to help people. I want others to be happy. I'm doing this out of a completely benevolent place. And then I realized I had another immature thought, which was, I'm doing this not for others, I'm doing this for myself because I want to feel good and helping people makes me feel good. And then if I help other people and I feel good, then I can help more people and blah, blah, blah. That was the self-centric thought. But then came the third thought. The third thought was, why not both? Because if I say to myself that I'm helping others only for the sake of others, I am a liar, sir. I am a liar. And if I tell myself that I help others just for the sake of myself, and if this is true, then I can't really help others because I don't think about them, I think about me. And so there has to be some element that is self-serving in all of that. And at the same time, it feels like self-serving while not being selfish is in service of the higher good in a way. Yeah. It's kind of like when you empower yourself and you allow yourself to become better, then you will kind of automatically benefit others.
Yeah. It's interesting because this part, for example, of how many are coming and trying to use the words from the Bible, and they are just taking certain things out of context, are trying like to corrupt the Bible and their meanings. And it's funny because they are always coming and taking exactly just this quote out of the bigger verse, which I just mentioned before, is in order to love someone else, like to love your neighbor, you have to love yourself first.
Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely true. But they're all forgetting that what you want to do is not only to love yourself and to forget about your neighbor, it's you want to love yourself. So you want to of course, have a good life, to achieve something, use your talents because God blessed you with certain talents. That's why you are maybe more empathic. Maybe that's why you are maybe good in speaking, in communicating. That's maybe why you are good in sports, whatever, God gave you and blessed you with some talents which you have to use. And by using them, you will even multiply them, how Christ promised us, And if you love yourself, you are doing this to serve other people. So you are basically, like you said with your third thought, you are elevating yourself and other people, Mm-hmm. And so it's a work not just for yourself and not just for them, because that would be a lie, obviously, because it still would be for yourself, but it's like they're working now in union. And you are elevating, it's just for the greater good, basically.
I love that you said union. It's like whenever I have this conversation about God with people who don't think that God is bullshit, which is every I don't know, actually, I don't know a person in their right mind who kind of doesn't think that, who kind of says, oh, God is just bullshit. Like I don't, because they all have a certain sense of it. And they always talk about this. There's always like some sort of version of the idea of union or participation. Like if you want to create a life that you love, a life that you're happy in, there has to be a certain idea of a certain level of participation with the energy of creation. Like it's not only to pray to God and say, oh, God, please give me a new Lamborghini. I want a new Lamborghini, God, please do. No, it's you ask of it, you wish upon a star, you ask it from the higher purpose, the Lamborghini for our purposes, and then you have to actually do the work. And if you ask the right questions with a pure heart and do the work, you'll probably get it.
Yeah. That's why, for me, I really love this book. So one of my favorite books out of the Bible is the book of Proverbs, which are just basically a collection of quotes. It's like you are reading a philosophy book. And I think there are around 10, if not more, verses in different chapters related to lazy people. Like Solomon and some others wrote this book as well. They're coming and saying, you shouldn't be a lazy person, because if you are not working, you will not have any food, you will not have any house, you won't be able to feed your family, you won't be able to achieve anything, and no one wants a lazy person. So even God says we have to do something, and if you're taking this a step further and we're looking in the New Testament, they're saying, there are these two basically groups, which are, you are saved by faith alone and you are saved by works, although we are seeing is as you can't separate them really, they're working together. Because if you love, for example, someone, like if you love your wife, your partner, you're not just saying you are loving the person after you're going and cheating on your partner, so that's not how this works, So faith and works goes hand in hand. And also here, this goes hand in hand. So if you want to do something, if you want to show something, you have to show it with your actions, So if you want a Lamborghini, just to wish for it, it won't magically appear, You have to actually go and do the work as well. Of course, you can wish for it or pray for it and whatever else, but you also have to put in the work.
Sure. You started talking about cheating on your partner, and I wanna use that opportunity to pivot the conversation towards. You said that you are second time married. I didn't know that. I knew that you're married. I knew that you have a family, that your son has the coolest name ever, but I didn't know that you're second time married. So what kind of happened in your first marriage that kind of made you make a cut? What went on over there?
It's hard to explain, but it also fits in the theme of religion, Christianity, blah. I had a time where I was gone from the church, and when I came back, I was 21, I think, if I remember well. I was 21, yeah, and we were here in a Romanian church. I don't want to blame anyone, I'm just telling how it is and just saying it from my perspective, I still was very naive. I'm alone, so I don't have any siblings. So, of course, the connection to my parents, especially after I was gone, there was also quite a bit of a silence between me and my parents. And after I came back to Christ, I found Christ again, and he saved me from a really, really dark path, which I would have went to. I came back, and my mom wanted me to get married as fast as possible, because I think she's from Romania, they also have their a bit different thinking, and with the church was was very conservative, so they were like really, really strict in their thinking, also in their dressing and in their teachings. And so they wanted to make sure I'm like not living again, or I'm not deciding whatever, or I'm not getting tempted or whatever. It's good to get married basically as fast as possible. And so I didn't want to get that fast married, but I was like, okay, why not? And so I was, just being around there in the church, doing my stuff. I was after also leading the youth group and singing in the choir, I think it's in English. And there I met this
Singing
girl.
in the choir, you said?
Yeah, choir. So yeah.
I can't imagine you singing in the choir, man.
Yeah, I was singing at in the bass.
Okay. I can't imagine you going, Ave Maria.
No. I'm the ones who are giving the bass, so we have
Okay.
a deeper voice. But yeah, it was a nice time. And anyway, so there was after also in our church, or in this church where we were going, there was also this kind of, how should I say, kind of prophecies, if it's the right word, like foreseeing or
Mm-hmm.
visions.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this, and they said, yeah, you and this girl would fit, and we said, okay. It was also
Oh, so they just told you this girl is the one that you're going to marry.
yeah, it was a connection, some kind of connection there, but they kind of said, yeah, go for it, basically. And my mom was also like, let's not wait, let's not waste any time, let's do it as fast as possible.
Oh, wow.
And I can't remember which time, but it like really fast we got married, and
That is so fucked up, I have to say. It's so fucked up. I mean, they do that in
yeah,
Judaism as well. And like one of the biggest like deficits of religion, it's a little bit like, yeah, you get married and then you figure shit out no matter what, because it's a sacred union. And even if you're unhappy,
yeah,
because the goal of marriage is not happiness, it's family. And
yeah.
then, so what if you're not happy? Go fuck yourself. Like, no, 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 no. But yeah,
I
anyway.
understand. I understand it somewhere, somehow, but it's still, especially when your parents, and I don't want to blame my parents, but especially when parents are also intervening quite a lot and they are like basically deciding for you and over you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they are just doing everything. Like also, I'm the only one here, I don't have any siblings, so they wanted to do basically everything and to decide everything. And mom was, anyway, like even she has a bit of an issue with controlling and stuff like that. And yeah, so it took after a few months, like 4, 5, 6 months, and I saw, okay, she is actually a different person than what I thought she will be. But we still tried to get along. We still tried to do it somehow. We had a lot of things going on after, problems with, yeah, with my family, with her family a bit, and somehow we still tried to keep fighting. And I ended up being married with her for 6 years. But
Ooh.
after the first year, it was like we just tried to get along somehow, but it was like every day we were fighting every day. It was like really bad, and it got worse. I also got I was not a good person. She wasn't a good person, so we are both to blame. And I'm speaking openly about it, and I'm saying stuff, and my closer
And you're not
friends, my
saying it in a
family
way, you're
know.
also not saying it in a way that is like, oh, that bitch. You're just being, hey, I wasn't at my best at the time, and she wasn't at the best at the time. So you assume
Yeah, so
responsibility over it in a way.
and that's what I try when I'm speaking with people about it, and like also now, I want to tell the story, but I don't want to make her as or my family or whoever else. I don't want to blame them and to point the fingers at them and to say they are responsible for that and it's their fault. Not at all. I really want to be humble and I want to say, okay, it's our all fault. Especially it's mine, because I could have intervened and said also something as well, but I just was too young, too dumb, too naive,
Oh, I think I
basically.
lost you.
So every time when I'm speaking with people and also like with you, I'm trying to be as formal as possible, because I don't want to point fingers. I don't want to blame anyone. I don't want to be this kind of person to say that yeah, it's just their fault, it's just her fault, it's just my parents' fault or the church's fault. No, I just want to be this as formal as possible and to to still stay as humble as possible, you know. I just want to tell the story and to say how it is and my experiences out of it. And I know I could have intervened as well and say that, yeah, no, let's wait a bit, or no, I don't want. But I wasn't mature enough. I was still young. I was naive, you know, I was influenced a lot. So it is how it is.
I think there's a lot of stuff to learn from this story. Especially, there's a few things that I kind of noticed. Number one is that you really talk the talk when it comes to, you said when you look in the mirror and you think about what it is that I want to be when people treat me poorly. It's like, yeah, I don't want to be that kind of person who's bitter. I don't want to be that kind of person who is toxic. And because it's really easy, especially if you had a terrible relationship, to just say, oh, this person is terrible. She did this and this to me. And I bet there were times that you said that, and it makes complete sense if you said that to yourself, you know, or when you're younger and you were saying this to other people. But I think it's very, very important that you're framing it in a way that these things, like, not like, oh, these things happened to me and it's their fault and this fault and this fault and this fault. It's like you're not looking for blame. It's more like, okay, these things happened. Now let's just see how we can learn from them and move forward. And I think, like, for example, when I say to my guys who I coach, it's like if you go on a date, for example, and you talk about how much of a bitch your ex was, that's not gonna, you know, show anything positive about you. You know, it's just showing that you're trashing people. Like no one will say, "Oh, poor baby," if your ex was like a bad person.
That's the thing, yeah. That's why I don't like to say something. You know, we're just speaking about what happened, and we are trying. This is the next point. We are trying to learn out of it, you know, and to see, okay, what was actually something positive, what we could take from it, you know. And I learned a lot.
So what did you take from it into your second marriage?
I learned a lot of patience. I learned to be as open as possible and to speak about things, you know, and also to try to understand the person differently, you know, because I remember back then I was like trying different things to say to her and to other people, you know, in like different ways, but it was not, maybe it wasn't enough, or it was just like, there's this, I don't know if you know this book, but there's this great book, Love and Respect. It's a Christian book. It's based on Christian principles. But it's huge because it goes into, okay, the woman needs love and a man needs respect, you know. And when you can't talk properly in the way which the other person understands what you want from that person, and here we are again back to our things, you have to serve the other person, you know, you want to serve the other person, you want to deny yourself, you want to self-sacrifice yourself, you know, because you want to elevate the person and you want to help the person. So if you want to have a healthy relationship and a healthy marriage, you have to make the other person understand what you want, but in that person's not intelligence, but way of understanding, you know, because of course we can speak in numbers.
Yes.
And this is a good example, you know. Basically, we men are speaking in numbers, and the women are speaking in letters, and.
Right, we speak in logic.
She won't understand it, you know. And even if you are thinking, I'm framing it in so many different ways, and she's still not understanding, it's still your fault because you can't express your thoughts and your emotions in her way of understanding, you know. So you just try harder.
That is so true. That is so true. That is so true. I always give it as like two different operating systems. You know, one is like iOS and one is Android. It's literally two different operating systems. And I always say to guys, I frame it as if like, you know, like men, when they think, when they're processing stuff, they need to go to their cave and think about it. This is like a term that's not, I did not invent it. It's John Gray, but they need to go into their cave and to think about things. And women, they need to experience an emotional storm. Women need to experience the entire plethora of their emotions and feel all of them, however chaotic it is. And you know, they need to cry and they need to process and all of that stuff. Men find that thing like completely like, why? They don't understand it. Like if I tell you, bro, I have a problem, I'm expecting you to say, okay, here is the solution. And then I'll be like, okay, now I don't have a problem. For a woman, that's not necessarily like that, but guys tend to think that it is. And because they use, like what you say, numbers to try to speak to women, and women speak in letters, there's always these discrepancies. It's really cool that you see it, like, also, because I've never saw how it is like from the Christian perspective, but this love and respect thing is like, it's terms that I use, and it's so accurate that men that need to be respected and women needs to feel loved. When a woman feels unloved, she starts testing a guy so he will prove his love to her. And sometimes women, they have all kinds of ways to do that, but some women express it in very disrespectful ways. And then there is this point of a woman is disrespecting a man is feeling really disrespected and doesn't feel good, so he doesn't express his love, and then she doesn't feel loved, and then bam, 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 and it becomes this downward spiral of she wants love, he wants respect, they get none of it, and then they lead to divorce. But then there's what you said that I really loved about being in service of the other person, where if she's disrespecting you, and you understand that all she needs is love, it's essentially kind of like, okay, get off your ego, give her the love, even though you really don't feel like it right now, and see what happens.
For Apostle Paul comes in the book of Corinth, if I'm not wrong now, and he says, like, for women, you should obey to your husbands, you know, and not in a bad way, like to obey, like to a dictator or something like that. No, not like that. You should be in a respectful way, you know. You should respect him, you should respect his actions, his leader, basically, and everything, you know, because he's providing for you. And this is what he means, you know. What man wants is to be respected from their woman, you know, and their woman to be like, yeah, can you do this for me? And thank you that you did this for me, and I appreciate it a lot, and just stuff like that, basic stuff. And for men, Apostle Paul comes and says, yeah, men, love your husbands as Christ did and died for their church, for his church. So our love for the woman, so my love for my wife, should be as Christ's love for us or for his church, you know. And this means if I have to die for her, you know, I will have to do that. And this means if she is pissed about me for something, I have to like you said, you know, I have to take my ego by side, basically to let my ego die, and to go to her and still give her love, what she needs, you know. Because it's not about me, you know. And a relationship and a marriage is never about the one person. It's always about the other person. And if we are thinking always about the other person, and she thinks the same about you or about me, we will just build ourselves up. But if we're just thinking about ourselves, we will just dig graves or holes, basically, you know, and we will not build ourselves up. We will break everything underneath us.
An important nuance to add to that is that it's not only thinking about the other person. It's always having the other person in mind, because you have to think about yourself as well, in a sense of, if the other person is being disrespectful, if the other person is being like rude, if the other person is a horrible communicator and is doing really nasty shit to you, there's no reason you should sit there and take it.
Of course, that's why, to get back to my first marriage, that's why I stayed 5 years together with her, and after I said, like, I can't anymore, it's not going, you know, we're not going in any direction together at all, you know. But in anything, we were always like, she wanted to go to the right, I wanted to go to the left, and we couldn't find a middle ground whatsoever. And after things got really out of hand, I said no. It's better for us, even if it's maybe a sin, even if it's maybe bad or whatever. It's better for us if we are getting divorced, and everyone is going his own way. Because I think in the long run, it will be better for us. For you, you will find peace, you will find someone else. And for me, I will find peace and I will find someone else, Instead of staying together and having our lifetime war and maybe even worse things, and cheating and who knows what would have happened, Because I don't think things would have better, It just got worse and worse. And if it's like that, you have to decide to say, no.
So this is something that I like to hear you say, because you say that even though you live the Christian dogma, you still have a sense of agency and a sense of critical thinking. This is something that I really loved. That is, it's more in Judaism, because in Judaism, I'm originally Jewish, by the way. Judaism, like the reason I think Christianity is so appealing to a lot of people, and I don't want to go back to religion now because we talked about religion already, but like, the reason why Christianity is so appealing to people, in my opinion, is because there is something that is it's not simple. It's not a simple idea by any means, but there is something about it that is much more straightforward, that is very appealing to humans, where it's basically saying, here is the right way, here is the wrong way. You want to know how to act? Model Jesus Christ. Anything that Jesus Christ isn't is not the way to act. I know it's not exactly like that. There's more complexities, clearly, but I'm just oversimplifying on purpose. Where in Judaism, they're literally telling you, even in Kohelet in Hebrew, it's Ecclesiastics in English. He says, Hevel Havalim Amar Kohelet. It means that everything is nonsense. And Kohelet, by the way, Ecclesiastics, is actually Solomon. And he says, everything is bullshit. That's exactly what he's saying. Because essentially, there's this really great rabbi that I love listening to, and he keeps being asked the question of like, okay, if this is the way and that is the way, so how do we know what is the right way? And in Christianity, basically, they're telling you the answer, like, this is the right way. Where in Judaism, they basically tell you, I don't know. You want to know the right way? You have to listen. You have to listen. And you will find the right way. But you have to be open for the word of God. You have to be open to hear his guidance. And I think in the end, every person who follows a dogma without having this sense of critical thinking, knowing when does the dogma does not work, is missing out. Because you could easily have said, no, religion says we have to stick together, therefore I will stay with this woman even if I'm unhappy, doesn't matter what, because we need to get married, because this is what Jesus Christ said, whatever. But you broke out of that dogma.
Yeah, because for me it was like, okay, I'm now standing on a two-cross intersection. I think you can say it like that, So I could go two different paths. Both were wrong. It's just like that, from a logical perspective, both were wrong, because either I could have stayed married and have the worst life I could have imagined, and hers as well, so it wasn't just about me, it was about her life as well, and thinking about our families, my parents, her parents, because it was just a lot going on there, And on the other hand, or the other path was, getting divorced, so both are wrong. But for me, from a logical perspective, it was like, getting divorced seems a bit less bad than the other one, because what is, okay, you are getting divorced now once, and I was like, okay, I will do this now and I will not do it ever again, usually. And it just happened now. Quick, But if I'm staying with her together, it will be a lifetime, it would have been like 50, 60 years or so of constant drama, of constant
Jesus.
brutality and action, and who knows what else, because you can't imagine what else can happen. And of course you can live it somehow, how maybe many did in the past, but were they happy? Didn't they sin at all? I don't think so. I still think there was a lot going on behind closed doors, but you're just not seeing it, but what is worse, accumulating over a lifetime, so many things, or just once doing this one thing, and after, it's, you are saved, basically saved, so you have your life open, and you can still have a happy life, and you can still repent, and you can still try to do better, and her as well, so you are basically saving two lives. If we are looking from this perspective.
You're starting to convince yourself. We started saving two lives, and if they have a kid, her and her next life, that's another kid that they'll have, and then another life I'm saving, and my kid, that's another life. Yeah, I hear you. Man, let's talk a little bit about Strongman, because it's my favorite topic,
Sure.
First of all, I mean, dude, you held the under 105 log world record, and you also held the Atlas Stone world record.
No, just a European record.
Just the European record. Just the European record. Like, this is fucking massive. Like, how... And when people think about strongman, usually they think about, like, fat people. Under 105 and under 90 and under 80 classes are it's a different sport, because it's weights that are very similar to the, at least the under 105. It's very similar weights to the big guys, but at the same time, it's a much more athletic sport, and it requires much more technique. It requires a lot more. I mean, let's say that the lighter guys can't get away with things that the bigger guys can rather. Like the bigger guys, you take a guy who's like a 180 kilo mass monster, he can get away with a lot of things when it comes to lifting that a lighter guy can't. First of all, have you always been relatively strong, or is it something that you really worked hard to develop, or both?
Both, I would say. I had some tendencies towards being strong, but I think it's because from the very beginning, from being a child already, I was seeking this kind of things, because I understood there that I really love and like to lift heavy things, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a tree trunk or stone or just fighting with other kids and throwing them around and stuff like that. So I was inclined towards strength and lifting hard, Now the question is, was I blessed already with this, or is it just because I had this natural or instinctive tendency towards that, that I became now so strong? We don't know. It's a combination of both, I guess.
When you first got into the gym, how long did it take you to do 100 kilo?
This came really fast. Like it's funny because I started in my home gym. So where my home gym is now, in the garage, that's where I started lifting, like now almost 18 years ago. And we had there a bench press, so a bench where I could bench press, a lat pull down, barbells, dumbbells, and stuff. And I think it took me... The other thing is, you don't have to forget, I was 16, but I weighed 106 kilos, so I was overweight as a...
Yeah, you were 100 kilo at 16?
So it was normal for me, or somewhere out of necessity I had to press 100 kilos, pretty fast.
You're 175 and you weighted 100
Yes.
kilo at 16? What the hell? Okay.
I remember, I think within the first 6 months or so, I bench pressed 100 kilo for reps. And I think I bench pressed even a bit more than that. But yeah. I also remember I got stuck twice underneath the bar on the bench with no one at home. And the shitty thing is my bench was exactly in the middle, and the garage was, there could fit 2 cars. And the bench was exactly between these two cars in front, so I couldn't drop the bar to the side because it would have fallen on one of the cars, so I had to roll it over my stomach twice, so it was really horrible.
Yeah, so this is like the old school strongman, but with a bench press. Right. Okay, so like just for comparison, man, I got out of the army at 18 years old and I weighed 64 kilos.
64.
Yeah, I mean, I was starved in the army. Yeah, I weighed 64 kilos. Now I weigh 92. But I'm walking easy 92. But I was 64 kilo when I got out of the army. It took me, well, also I have bad shoulders, but it took me about, I think, maybe 6 months to 8 months to bench press for the first time 100 kilo. Even more. Like, I'm not trying to say, and I'm not trying to make it an excuse like you have the great genetics. I mean, you do clearly. And at the same time, you can have great genetics and not hold world records and not be a world champion. So what do you think? What do you think separates like people like who are whether it's mindset or whether it's whatever it is? I don't know. What do you think it is that makes a man or a person to perform at such high levels? And what does it take?
Of course, like you said, there has to be some genetic component part of it, a huge one, but not absolutely, because I think your two things, like your drive, basically, so how hard you want to push yourself or how hard you are working is one thing, and the other thing is your attitude or your mindset, basically. For me it was always like from the very beginning, I never was, or I never approached something with the belief of I can't do that. For me, I never limited myself, and that's also one of my biggest mantras, if you can say so, or mottos. And certainly you will hear me somewhere say this somewhere, Instagram or on our podcast or whatever. It's always don't limit yourself. And this is from the very beginning. I never limited myself, and I always wanted to achieve something, and I was willing to put in the necessary effort for that. So I really, my work ethic and my mindset, I think, are just different from the average people, because I'm just working my ass off and I'm not limiting myself at all. Even with the 190 kilo log, with the world record, when I said I knew I was near the world record, and when I saw that I'm near, I had already my mind attached to the world record. And when I said, yeah, next year I'm going to break the world record, I took the number 190. At the time it was 187 and a half. And I was like, no, I will not jump 1 kilo or do something like that. I want 190 kilograms. Yeah. I want to hit that number because it sounds good. It's not 188 and a half or whatever. I wanted that specific number, and I didn't limit myself, and I worked my ass off for that.
Yeah. By the way, did speaking of world records, did Max?
No, unfortunately, he lifted it until his knees got stuck there, and it wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah, talk about fucking genetic freaks as well, Max. Like, that guy's insane. Like, it's just so crazy to watch him. Like, I follow him on Instagram and just seeing how he progresses, like, just week to week. It's like, dude, what vegetables are you eating, insane, bro? Yeah, like, wow. Yeah. So what are, like, I mean, now clearly, I mean, you had a certain health scare in the past year that kind of took you away a little bit from competing. What happened there exactly?
So I was at a few docs, and they all didn't know exactly what happened. So one thing, I had a mononucleosis, if you know what it is. That's some kind of rare disease or infection. It's in German. It's also called like Kusskrankheit, like the kiss disease, because it's going.
I heard that. Yeah. I heard in Hebrew it's also called.
Yeah, and this one is like
Okay.
really shutting down your immune system. It's making you feel really tired and exhausted. And I had this problem anyway already before, but I will come to that a bit later. And so I went to do blood samples and to get analyses and stuff, and most of them found something with my thyroid. Some said, yeah, my thyroid is working too much. The others said the thyroid is working too less and stuff. And so I got on a T4, on a thyroid hormone.
Which is good for the gains.
I found another doc because one of my clients was working with them from Vienna, and I went there. And they're working in the field of cybernetic or something like that, and also with hypnosis and stuff like that. And the cool thing about them is they are measuring everything. So you are getting on your brain some electrodes. They also measured like my thyroid, how the thyroid is working, and some other glands. And what they discovered is that I have some kind of psychosomatic issue, where my amygdala, so the part of your brain which regulates your anxiety, is working too hard, too much, and is down regulating all my glands, and especially the thyroid, and that's why also I had these issues for many years, for like over a decade or so, where I was like really exhausted, really tired. It didn't matter how much I was sleeping. I was always tired and exhausted. Sometimes I had like really hardcore times where I couldn't really focus and concentrate. And I just pushed through. And he said, for example, if I'm continuing like that, sooner or later I will run into either schizophrenia or some kind of bipolar disorder or something like that, or multiple personalities.
Damn.
Yeah. And so I worked with him. We did some sessions. We worked with some devices what they have with stimulating the glands. I had some psychotherapies with him, for example. He also gave me some kind of exercises what you can do. And now, so I started this in April or in May. In April, I think. And now, since last month, we finished everything, and it's like I'm a completely different person. My thyroid hormones are normal again. I'm sleeping normal again. I need just 8 hours, and I'm feeling like refreshed and how it should. I think I never slept like that in my life, and it's just. Yeah,
I should talk to this doctor.
It's crazy, It's what you can do. Everything is, and especially the crazy thing is, you could see all the changes in the brain happening through these electrodes because you saw it on the diagrams on the screen on the computer, and you could see from session to session how it gets better and better, and it was just crazy, And even like subjectively, my feelings, and even objectively, my wife was saying, "Hey, it seems like you are more here, you are more energetic, you can do more things," and it's just crazy how this thing changed. My thyroid hormone I'm not taking anymore, because my thyroid is normal again. So it's crazy.
Could it be that it was also like the time off of Strongman?
Perhaps, sure, because the stress of competing and preparing and everything, especially towards last year, everything accumulated into an extreme. Because when I went to America to World's Strongest Man, within 8 weeks I got 4 times sick with fever and
Jesus.
Urinary infection and stuff, so I was laying also in bed, but I had to pee, and the pee was burning, and I was even 1 week before OSG, I was laying in bed with fever, and it was just crazy, so everything accumulated there to the extreme. And he said, what I wanted to say, he also said that this is some kind of a very long period of time accumulated everything together, so some kind of trauma from my past, from my childhood, because if I'm thinking back, I can't remember my childhood until I'm 7 or so, and just there I have just certain memories popping up in my brain. So and even later on with my first marriage and all this stuff, so everything accumulated, and as a typical man, you're not speaking about it, you're just keeping it, and
That's such an interesting point that you brought up. I mean, we're kind of conditioned as men to not talk about childhood trauma because we deem it as weakness. It's like, what are you talking about? The shit that happened to you as a child? Just suck it the fuck up. It's like, and I think that first of all, there's no weakness in talking about it, and second of all, if you don't, it's gonna bite back at some point for sure. At some point, it's like the saying goes: first, God throws a pebble at you. And then if you don't notice the pebble, he throws a stone. If you don't notice that, he throws a rock. And if you don't notice that, he throws a boulder. But at some point, you'll understand. And I'm just really happy that you did it, man. Because, I'm just really, really happy that you did it. And especially that you realize that it had something to do with some stuff that happened to you in childhood and that you've kind of worked through them. Because I think that it's so often that people don't understand that stuff that happen at childhood that go unresolved and you don't actively treat them, they just stay there and linger in the back, and they affect us. They literally affect our behavior. They affect how they literally affect how we live our lives right now in the present. Even things that happened to you at 5 years old, it kind of created a certain structure in your psyche, in your unconscious, that affects your conscious mind. It comes up from the unconscious and affects you. And if you don't address that it not only affects your emotional body, it also affects your physical body at some point.
That's why the term is there.
Do you
psychosomatic. So
do you think you're gonna go back to competing now?
I will compete next year again. I'm just not sure exactly when. So I'm thinking to start again in February, which would be pretty soon. And it's funny because it would be also, I think, the heaviest competition of the year. So and that's
Which
the
one
Cambrian Invitational, the U1 of 5 Invitational in England.
Okay.
Should be a really good, nice competition, but because it will be organized from Luke and Ree. If you know them, Chaos Strength and
definitely. Really cool competitions that they
I
do,
think
really
it will be
ones.
a great competition, and it's a nice start to the competition here.
That's fucking awesome, man. I'm so happy you're coming back to competing. I enjoyed following your stuff so long before I even met you, before I even asked you to coach me back in the day. I gotta say, I'm at a very low point in my strongman
Why
career.
so?
because last year I was sure that this year will be my year. I came third in Germany in my weight class, and my goal was to go to the Arnolds and to maybe come into a better place in Germany this year. Knowing now how did Germany's Strongest Man go this year, I know that if I was training regularly, I could have won. I mean, except if Max competed. If Max competed, I couldn't have won. But Max didn't compete this year. Anyway, I was sure that I could have won. And I always wanted to go to the Arnolds this year. And I saw the results, and I saw that the people competed. And I don't know, according to the results, I could have done a very good placing. I don't know if I could have won, but it could have been a very good placing, top 5 for sure. But last year, I tore my meniscus. And something happened to my shoulder, which I can't understand. I can't explain. But ever since then, it just got worse and worse and worse. I had 2 operations on my meniscus. One of them was last week. So I'm still recovering from that. He now cut a part of my meniscus, so I have a small part of my meniscus left. I don't know if my knee will ever be good enough to ever do something like a fucking heavy yoke or something. I don't know. And my shoulder is just getting worse and worse. Right now I can't press an empty dumbbell. I can't press an empty barbell without it hurting. There's nothing I can do. So I'm just I'd like to say that other people came back from worse things, but I don't know. I just don't see it right now.
Yeah,
You
there are
know.
certainly a lot of people who went through similar situations or worse situations, you know. The thing is, I was thinking about this yesterday because I want to make some kind of post about this, and it's always shit if you have an injury, you know. It's always really at the beginning it's like you there are so many thoughts going through your head and you are like, I can't do that and it will take so long, and what will I be able to do, and will I be able to do that after again? But for me it's again, you know, you injury also means you have possibility to work on some other stuff. And just because you're injured doesn't mean you can't do absolutely anything anymore, you know. It's mostly the problem is most of the time that we are hyperfixating on the injured things, you know, and on the injured movements, but we are not seeing the movements which we still can do, you know. And you can still do so many things, you know. You just have to shift your focus away from that and use this as a possibility to work on weaknesses and on problems, you know. Maybe your body just needs a whole reset basically, you know, and you have now the possibility to do that, you know, and to lay a foundation for afterwards, you know, because if your foundation is still good, you can still build upon that and get back to heavy lifting and heavy stuff, you know. So don't limit yourself.
Yeah, I think this is what I'm trying to do. I think this is what I'm trying to do. It's really hard when you can't literally do any pressing movement, nothing. And now, I can't do any leg work, nothing. But, I'm gonna be a very good rower. But I guess, do you ever look at yourself and say, or when you were injured? I mean, and I can imagine there's a lot of people who, even amateur lifters. Yeah, this is a question that I've been contemplating a lot on. I wonder what was your insight about this. When you were injured, were you ever looking at who you were before the injury and kind of thinking and kind of comparing to who you are now, and we're thinking, oh, damn.
Yes and no. Of course, you are thinking somewhere back to what you achieved and what you've done before an injury. You know, that's normal, you know, because you were already there. You could already do that. Understand? I get it. You know, it's normal, but that doesn't mean you can't do it again and you won't do it again. You know, I ruptured both hamstrings 6 weeks before Europe's Strongest Man. You know,
Full tear?
no, partial tears. You know, the right one more than the left one, but both. You know,
Okay.
so I couldn't. My walking was really hard. You know, but I still tried to do stuff. You know, I even could
Okay.
deadlift in some kind of sumo, semi-sumo stand. I just did what I could do. You know, and I was
Just shows everybody that
yeah.
sumo deadlift is bullshit. If you can if you can deadlift with torn hamstrings.
Everything has its place. You know, even sumo deadlift. So
Yeah,
or
yeah,
its
yeah.
purpose. So yeah, just it's again the thing, you know, don't hyperfixate on it. For me, even now when I'm looking, not even looking back to what I did, you know, like even the 190 log or so, of course, actually, I don't know. You know, maybe I will be able to do it again right now if I'm going and do it. You know, you never know. But I'm not looking now
Yeah.
back to it and saying, yeah, I did it. And the other thing is, like, I'm 34 now, you know, so next year will be 35, and I'm thinking some many times, okay, how much longer can I do this? You know, how much longer can I progress further? But
Yeah.
I'm not limiting myself to anything, and I'm also not expecting anything. You know, I'm just looking forward to what I will be able to do again eventually, and I'm just setting some goals, and I will work towards the goals. You know, if I won't be able to achieve the goals, I will just set other goals. You know, it's yeah, that's how life is sometimes. You know, it's you have to make it work somehow. You know, how that somehow is the question, but
It really cheers me up to hear you say that. No, it does. Because like for me, for example, I just about a month ago went on vacation, a month and a half ago, and I was like, the one thing I could do before my surgery was deadlift. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do a small strength block, and I'm just gonna get. I wanted to get a 300 kilo deadlift, like a raw 300 kilo deadlift. And I went there. It felt really good. I got to the attempt itself. I got it to the knees, and then my knee failed me, the injured knee. And I knew that if I was able to push as hard as I wanted from the left knee, I would have gotten it up really easy. I spoke to Adam Dirks, and he told me that I had that lift. I just didn't like. I wasn't very aligned with the bar, and yeah, and that kind of hurt, man. But then I also realized that in order for me to get that 300, I need to let go of the 300 first and kind of let my body heal, get whatever it needs to do. I'm your age, I'm 34, and I don't aim to win Europe's Strongest Man or anything like that. But it is important for me to be the best I can be. So I think the lesson here is rather, at least for me, is to kind of let go. And even if right now what I'm doing is just going to the gym for 60 minutes, just doing some pump sessions and making sure I'm not too hurting and just leaving the gym feeling energized, that's what I need to do right now. And what I've selected to do as a way of action, because we're participating in our creation of life, I chose to take the coach that I would never take. And I took a coach who specializes in bodybuilding. I actually work with, do you know who's Victor Black? So I'm working with Victor Black now a little bit, which is great because the guy is just a pool of knowledge about everything. And yeah, it's basically, he's telling me to do everything that I would never have done. So that's probably a good coach for me right now.
That's why for me, for example, also experiencing now many things and diving into many things like also flexibility training and old-time strongman training and stuff like that. It's just tools and resources for me to gather and to be able to use for later on, you know. Because I'm pretty torn apart what I want actually to do, you know. I want to compete, of course, and I still want to achieve a few things, but after that, who knows, you know. And that's why having many possibilities and many ways in which you can work towards will keep you entertained for quite some time, you know. The thing is just with everything, you know, you can't expect. It doesn't matter if it's a rehab, so coming back from an injury. It doesn't matter if you want to compete at a competition. It doesn't matter if you want to win a certain competition or if you want to set a record. It doesn't matter if it's a personal record or a world record. Everything takes time, you know. So you can't expect to get these things in a few weeks, you know, or to get... Like for me, I'm working, besides my strength and stuff like that, I'm working on splits, you know, I'm front splits and side split. It won't take me a few weeks to get them, to get that, you know. It will take me until at least next year or 2 years, or who knows, maybe even longer, you know. But I'm still working on it, and I will keep them in, and that's how I'm keeping myself entertained. And even if I can't lift heavy, I will be able to do other cool shit, you know, because I just have so many possibilities and so many movements which I can work on, you know. And if you're just not staying in that one bubble, like you did now, great, you know, going into bodybuilding. If you're just not staying into that one bubble, you will be able to have a much better life, because your life quality will increase, because you will just have to, you will have better overall condition, you know. You're training your physical capacities, you will have better awareness of your body, better proprioception, blah, etc. You will be just able to do more things, you know, and just explore your body and explore new movements and explore new ways, you know. If you're not certain what you can do, you know, there's always something what you can do.
That's very true. That's very true, that there is always something that you can do. And yeah, it cheers me up to hear that, to be honest. You know, it's like I like to say that I'm a very proactive person in a way that I like to find solutions for my situations ever, and I don't like to stay too much in the victim mode. Like I'll be a victim for like a few minutes a day sometimes, or sometimes in really bad days I'll be a victim for like an hour or two. But it's really important for me to get out of the victim and to find ways to grow, because if you don't grow, you die. And I think it's really, really important to keep such a positive outlook on things, especially in times where you're drowning in shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a last question for you. What advice would you have to a man who's now in a really bad place? Like they're lost, they don't know what to do, they have no idea where to go from here.
Depends, but I would say whatever makes you feel useful, go and do that. Because as we spoke at the beginning, if you're going and are serving other people, also like in another way, if you're being useful in a certain way, it doesn't have to be to people. My wife, for example, really loves animals, and because of that because I'm seeing your wall behind, because of that we have 5 cats, we have a dog, we had a mouse, we have 2 turtles, we even had a bird. Yeah, we even had a bird. And building something for yourself, or just something where you can use something of your potential, basically, will bring you one step further, or will help you to get out of that thing, because many times if we are in a bad state, it's not because we can't do anything, it's because we are not doing anything. We are just chained ourselves into a state where we are just like frozen, and for most people, being in such a frozen state and in such a helpless or victim state, like you also said, it's like really bad, because it's just going like a downward spiral, but if you are useful, it will build
Yeah.
upon, and it will go into an upward spiral. So if you are useful, you are creating something, you will get dopamine, this will make you happy, this will give you a bit more energy, and this will go up like that. It doesn't matter what that usefulness is, just go and train, go outside in nature, go help someone, just try to be somehow useful, and you will see, especially if you're serving other people, many people don't think that or don't realize that, but if you are helping other people, this is just food for your soul, basically, and for broken people, that's exactly the kind of food and intervention they need. I know it's hard, I know it's sometimes shit, but just find a way to get there,
Yeah, it's a little bit like getting out of that egocentric place, right? And just
Yeah.
go out of that ego and just try to give love, and you'll see that love
Yeah.
is just emanating through
Exactly.
you, right? I love that. I love that. Bro, where can people find you if people want to work with you and get like ridiculously strong, or not, or generally? I mean, you don't only work for strength athletes, right? So, what services do you offer? How can people find you if they want to work with you?
Mostly I'm now on Instagram, basically, I'm building a website where they will find me also, because I'm building now a coaching, how should I say, a coaching platform, basically, where I will have more coaches under me with education, with courses and programs, ebooks. So there's coming a lot now, but it's all in the building. And basically on Instagram and on YouTube, it's now also our podcast, which is in German, but I will start to do also other videos as well. And I think This is something what I'm not sure about if I should continue with content in German or if I should switch to English, because my Instagram is in English, so it's a bit tricky for the moment to structure that. But yeah, on YouTube as well will be content, and it's Emmanuel Pascari everywhere, so either on Instagram or on YouTube.
Right. And it's Pescari with an E and an I.
Pescari.
Right. Right. And it's going to be in the show notes. All the links are going to be in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, Emmanuel Pascari, thank you so much for coming, brother. Thank you for listening to the conversation with Emmanuel. I have been going through some rough time when it comes to my physical injuries, and as much growth as I'm experiencing in other dominions, I'm having a hard time to reconcile with that part of myself that is injured and that is incapable, especially that in light of the fact that last year I've been in my peak performance of my entire life. Talking with Emmanuel really, really helped me reconcile that part of myself. His humility and his maturity around this topic is incredible. And even though he's my age, I feel like I'm speaking to someone much older. I hope that you guys learn from this conversation as much as I have, whether it's in sports or religion or anything we talked about. I want to finally leave you with a quote from the book of Ecclesiastics, or in Hebrew, Kohelet. Et laharog ve'et liropo. And in English it means a time to kill and a time to heal. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.